Hi everyone. If you're wondering why I look like this, I haven't showered yet. I've definitely bathed, but I haven't been in a shower yet, so I haven't had a chance to go over my face with the old olive oil. But I wanted to come on here to talk about what happened yesterday. So yesterday, I went to a protest for Chris Kaba, and I wrote a speech that was related to experiences that I'd had with police and also the racism that I've endured, specifically over here. And at first I didn't want to do it because, if I'm honest, I wanted to make that speech out of anger. It wasn't really about Chris Kaba or the people that died in custody. It was about me. But then the closer it came to the day, the more I got nervous, and I realized it wasn't because I was nervous about talking what happened to me. It was because this is real. People are dying because of police corruption and institutionalized racism. And I talk about gang stalking all the time, but institutionalized racism is very much a part of gang stalking. There's a Guardian article that talks about how MI5 advised British citizens to spy on black families coming over here. So this is a real thing. You can look this up. So, there's that to be considered. And then there's also the fact that they are all gathered because people have actually died in police custody. They've lost friends, they've lost loved ones. And on top of that, even black people who have lived to tell the tale have been brutalized in one way or another. There was even somebody in supported housing, and I shouldn't bring this up because I can't stand her fucking ass, but there was one person that I used to live with back in London who was kicked in the stomach while she was pregnant by a police officer. Of course, I don't feel sorry for that person because then they turned right around and turned into a gang stalker. So I don't feel sorry for them. I don't feel bad for them. But that type of brutality and that type of reactive abuse, we see it with marginalized communities all the time. And that type of reactive abuse is exactly what targeted individuals go through, is exactly what activists go through, is exactly what brown people go through. That reactive abuse of excessive force and constant needling and microaggressions and, treating people as subhuman because of where they come from or what their skin color is. It's something that's been happening for a very long time. So when I made the speech, and up to the moment when I was getting ready to stand up and talk about what I was going through, I realized I wasn't just talking about my experiences for myself. I was talking about my experiences for black people in general who have been subject to corruption by the police, and especially black people who are TIs. I was speaking for all of us. It wasn't just for me. And the weight of that, the weight of knowing how much pain, how much grief people have been subjected to for no good reason other than their skin color. The weight of that, that's why I started crying during the speech. It wasn't because of what I actually went through. It was because the sheer weight of the grief that this corruption has caused and continues to cause. It really did a number on me. And I'm glad that I talked about it. I'm glad that I talked about my experiences with corruption in police custody. I'm glad I talked about the racism that I've gone through now. And I'm glad that targeted individuals can, in a way, find an avenue through talking about police corruption and police brutality, because that is a part of our targeting. And again, especially for black TIs. So what started out was me needing to be angry and needing to be heard. In the end, it turned into me needing to be there for someone else, like not just me and not just my own pain. A lot of these people I met with, you know, later on, they said it was so brave, it was so wonderful. I didn't see anything brave in it, but they thought I was brave to speak up. And I spent the rest of the day with some of these people, and let me tell you something, these are some of the most wonderful people you will ever meet. Kind, supportive. They got, you know, some of them have got like mental health problems like me. They go to therapy. Queer AF. Like, it was heaven to me to be around people who really understood how emotional health works and how people should be treating one another. It was so refreshing. And they were nothing but lovely to me the entire time. And it was lovely to be in that environment and to be in that space. And it just reminded me that even though human beings are not to be trusted for the most part, sometimes trust isn't the point. Sometimes it's important to go where your soul can find nourishment. Sometimes it's important to do that. Sometimes we have to put this whole thing aside and decide to ourselves, you know what, I might not trust everybody the whole way, but it's important that we unite on some kind of common ground. Everything that I'm doing with, you know, talking to Barry Trower and, you know, Black Lives Matter, all of this is a way for me to integrate all of them, because they are all, this is what society does, right? The marginalized in society get the full brunt of everything. Financial abuse, like surveillance abuse, you know, experimental abuse and all of that. Like we deal with everything all in one. And then the way society kind of admits to what they're doing, they kind of separate each thing that they're doing to us in separate areas. So for example, with Black Lives Matter, we're talking about racism, police brutality and police corruption. That happens to targeted individuals, and especially black ones. And then we want to talk about you know, torture, experimental torture, electronic weaponry, Wi-Fi, all of this stuff, that's being done to TIs. We want to talk about financial abuse, that's being done to TIs. We want to talk about emotional abuse, sexual abuse, childhood abuse, like physical abuse, that's being done to TIs every single day. So I feel like where the disconnect is with a lot of human beings is in all of these things that targeted individuals go through being treated as something separate with their own category. And I forgot to bring up narcissistic abuse. We go through that too. Blacklisting, like all of these things are separated from one another, so that when we talk about what we go through, people can't really compute it. Because how can even a small subgroup of people go through so much at one time? So it's very easy to kind of dismiss our claims and, you know, and say, oh, that we don't believe this is possible. This is just because it's just too much it's too much to process. All of it is too fucking much to process at once. So people can only really think about it from one lens. And you know what? Now I have to admit where I fucked up. Because I fucked up by making it about myself and the multitude of experiences that I went through, without stopping to think that police brutality, racism, and police corruption by themselves gets people killed. Without thinking that the whole, you know, Wi-Fi business and electronic weaponry and microwave sensitivity and microwave radiation, that alone gets people killed. without thinking that narcissistic abuse, which can turn into domestic abuse, that alone gets people killed, without thinking that sexism, homophobia, queerphobia of any kind, that gets people killed, without thinking that financial abuse especially gets people killed and does a far better job than anything else. Everything that we go through, and scientific experimentation as well, yeah. Everything that we go through as TIs, when split and brought to extremes, they all have the potential to kill. And that is why we're having trouble getting through to the rest of the world, is because just one of these things have been taken to its most extreme degree and gotten people killed. Just one of these things. It doesn't take all of it. Just one. And us not realizing that and us not recognizing that is where we lose people. That's where we lose people. We're not thinking. We're not thinking. Because there are people in this world who, yeah, they're waking up and stuff like that, but human beings can only take a certain amount of information. And whilst I get that, you know, I'm the first person to say that, you know what, TIs, you know, we need to focus on ourselves and we need to focus on, yeah, but it's only because I've been able to focus on myself and only myself that I could tell everybody this. So yes, thinking about yourself is important, but it's the ways in which we think about ourselves that needs to change. Instead of being so focused on our pain and so focused on what we go through, we need to be focused on how to make ourselves happy. And that's not to say that we're to blame for the pain that we go through, because we all know full fucking well that we're not. Okay? TIs are not to blame for any of this shit. Let's be real right off the fucking rip, okay? But working to make yourself happy whilst these people are doing everything in their power to make you miserable. The reason why this is so important is that it gives you the emotional time and the emotional space to really look objectively about how we need to approach how we tell people about gang stalking. It gives us that space to be able to empathize with other people and say, you know what, okay, this is what needs to happen. Because if we don't give ourselves that space to be happy, we can't empathize with anybody. We can't see from anybody else's point of view. And that harms what we're trying to do. So, yeah. Being with those people yesterday, it put everything into perspective for me. And I'm not going to lie, with that speech that I told people that speech, I didn't talk about the ways in which I said, listen, I will beat your fucking ass. I didn't talk about that part. I didn't talk about how, you know, I was saying that I wanted revenge on the people who were hurting me. I never talked about any of that. I left some details out, but the fact that I've been racially harassed for 10 months, very true. The fact that the only reason I was held in a police cell overnight rather than for the next few days was because there were too many witnesses to the fact that it was never an arrest in the first place and that I was reactively abused into being violent by police officers. So all of that is true. I haven't lied. I didn't stand up there and lie. Didn't need to. And the sad part is that people believed me. People believed what was true, essentially, because this is just a day in the life for a lot of black folk in this country. We're a very small population. A lot of people are gunning for us. It's just the way it is. You know. But for sure, I stood up there, told my truth. And I was met with a lot of empathy, enthusiasm, kindness. But there were some stories that I heard after the speech that I made that really troubled me. There was this disabled woman who, you know, she was riding a mobility scooter. And she was living in her flat at the time. I can't remember if it was an upper flat or something. and she heard some gunshots outside, and she saw some kids firing some guns, right? So she spoke to the police and said, listen, there are boys outside shooting guns and shooting firearms, right? So she basically did the right thing. Her reward, now listen to this, her reward for doing the right thing was 6 motherfucking armed police showing up at her door and busting her door down. I could not make this up. I couldn't make this up. So there's an old, you can clearly hear that this woman is old and disabled over the phone, right? There are people downstairs firing weapons. You do the right thing and call the police, but the police are banging down your doors if you've done something wrong. You can't make this shit up. Then there's another story that I found troubling. I forget the gentleman's name, so I apologize to the gentleman and, you know, his older brother who talked about what was happening. There was an Asian man who was killed in 1999 by a gang of white people. Now, after investigations unearthed, the family of the man who was killed not only found out that there were police nearby or police at the scene whilst these white people were beating down this Asian dude, the one punch thing was also a lie, because it turned out that the medical examiners had found multiple head wounds on the person that was murdered, on the brown victim that was murdered. So Brighton police essentially covered up a crime. For the longest time, they covered up a crime, and they tried to fucking get one of those bastards away on a technicality that they only threw one punch. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Racism alone can get somebody killed. Police brutality alone can get somebody killed. Like, you take any of these fucking evil practices that are being done to people every single day, it can get someone killed if you take it far enough. It can get someone killed if you take it far enough. And the worst part is that after that thing has killed you, because you're of a different race, or because if you show a modicum of anger, if you talk about violence, you talk about anything that doesn't make you look like a perfect human being, suddenly you're being sent trolls, probably from the police station themselves or the Met Police themselves, because we all know the army's got that 77th Brigade, right? You get all these trolls, probably from the Met Police themselves, talking about how, in one way or another, this black person deserved to die because they weren't being 100% perfect and law-abiding. It is always the same excuse. Anything to dehumanize us. If we're less than perfect, we're dehumanized. Hell, with me so-called being perfect, being able to sing and do tarot readings and stuff, and actually giving a damn about people and trying to be a kind person, even me being too perfect will make me a target. So either way, I'm fucked. Because I'm black. I already started off the foot of being black, and then on top of that, being fat, even though being fat is not as treated as viciously as being black, right? So all of these things, just focusing on one thing can get somebody killed. And everybody thought you're just trying to scare people. Fuck you. There are people who have already died because of people like the cunts that I'm dealing with upstairs. There are people who have already been killed because of people like them. But I'm trying to scare. What the fuck are you trying to do? And speaking of that family. Okay, so it's another day and another stalker yet again talking about hexing me. So back in London, this was years back, right? When I was living in supported housing, right? When I was living in one bedroom. I fell out with somebody at that house. And because, long story short, because I used to cuss them out on Twitter and I was very good at it as well, the thing that they wanted to curse me doing, so first of all, they said they cursed my soul. They said they went to a witch and cursed my soul. And they bragged about it from outside the window. Okay, fine. The second thing that they did that they didn't brag about was that they tried to put a curse on me to have stillborn children. What was the reason for this? I cussed them out on Twitter. That's it. I cussed them out on Twitter, gave them that quick read, then forgot they ever existed. Now all of a sudden they're mad. They want to curse, put a curse on me to have stillborn kids and put a curse on my soul and brag about it. That person who did that, apparently they're married, but also they're getting regular injections up their arse. They can't even do their makeup properly. And if they can't even do their makeup properly, I'm pretty sure they can't drive either. So that was the first person who talked about it. The second person who talked about cursing me was some Romanian family who basically bragged about cursing that I couldn't sing anymore. Now, I think that part of me is thinking that, yeah, they do curse me, but then the other part of me is thinking that they're just saying that just to try to get some type of reaction out of me, which is weird because, like, if you're gonna do that to get a reaction out of me, you might as well just do it. So there was the second time they bragged about, I don't know, putting curses on my internet usage, and you can tell how well that worked. So they put curses on my internet usage, put curses on my singing, and yeah, my vocal range is clipped, but that's not because of the fucking curse. That's because I screamed a lot at, you know, stalkers, and because, you know, I kept having weapons fired at my throat. So that had nothing to do with the fucking curse. But then again, they used the curse line to say it, you know, just to get a rise out of me, or they probably did do it. I don't know. I don't give a shit. All right. So the Romanian family that used to spy on me, you know, with their family, those were the second groups of people that bragged about putting a curse on me. That I'm sure there have been other people who tried to hex me before. I'm sure there have been other people. And now we've come to 2022 where apparently this family paid for a curse to be for a hex to be put on my tarot readings, and now it's probable that they will try to put a hex on my singing, right? What I don't understand is, if you're not an evil narcissistic piece of shit and you're only doing this because you're being pressured to do it, why wouldn't you just put a hex on me that I would be upset at every single thing you did? Because the point is to get me upset, right? And do you even know why you want me upset? Do you even know what the point is? Why you're working this hard to try and get a reaction out of me? Like, what is the purpose of getting a reaction out of me? Why are you being paid to get a reaction out of me? Or why are you being blackmailed to get a reaction out of me? What's the purpose? And think of this, once again, with the work that I do in manifestation, there are sacrifices that have to be made at every turn. It doesn't matter what you're doing. You could even be doing something good for someone else. There has to be a sacrifice. You have to pay something, and it's most likely going to be something that holds some type of emotional resonance for me. Truth be told, I might have to give up my tarot readings for something that I want more than my tarot readings. I might have to give my tarot readings up. Listen, what I truly want, I'm going to be very candid. I want the gang stalking to fucking stop. I want all TIs to be free. I want all of us to be free. I want all of us to be fully compensated for all our injuries. No bullshit offer either. All right? From the time we'll finish with us, we better be the new upper class. That's the type of fucking money I'm talking about. I want all TIs to be free, fully compensated for everything that we've gone through. And I want to be healthy and I want to be happy. Now, there are sacrifices that must be made in order for that vision to become a reality. There are sacrifices that must be made. And in order to cut my tarot readings, there are sacrifices that have to be made. In order for me to not be able to sing anymore, there are sacrifices that have to be made. Now, these being the narcissistic evil bastards that they are, they're thinking that they can just fuck with me and get away with it and there are no consequences because they want to win. But how much do you want to win? Because spirit will take something from you. And you better pray that that thing is not more important than getting a rise out of me. Because there are sacrifices that always have to be made for that trade. That's why I never reacted. That's why when they said, oh, we put a curse on this, we put a curse on that. There's a person who put a curse on my soul, on my fucking uterus. That person, from the last time I saw an image of them, that person could barely function. So I don't know, boy. I don't know, boy. I'm just saying. And, you know, on top of that, that Romanian family, the tea that I know about that fucking Romanian family, boy, that could be a long-ass conversation. Huh? So, like I said, what are you willing to sacrifice? And again, you better hope that what you lose is not, it doesn't mean as much to you as getting me upset or taking away my tarot or taking away my singing or taking away anything that you think will bring me the most joy. You better hope it's worth it. Better hope it's worth it. That's all I'm going to say on that. Oh, shit. I'm back. Yeah, better hope it's worth it, mate. Magic isn't a game. It's not a game. It's not a game. It really isn't a game. And think of this, right? Most of the time I mind my business. I've got people torturing me, stalking me, harassing me, breaking into my home, doing God knows what. I've got people giving orders for people to break into my home, doing God knows what. I'm not the one doing all this shit. And every time you harm another person, you're in karmic debt. And those debts have got to be paid one way or another. That's why the most evil people in the world, the reason they're thriving is because they've sacrificed millions upon millions of people who are better people than they are. Turn those people into messiahs so that their family lines could keep going without consequence. This is why I'm like, you don't get involved in magic unless you really know what you're doing. You don't dabble. You don't dabble and fuck around in the hopes of getting one over on somebody else because you can't handle the bed you made. So that's why I didn't react. It was like, no, you go accept the consequences. If you want to curse me, curse me. You want to hex me, hex me. Baby, that's on you. Because at the end of the day, hey, listen, magic is not a fucking game. Playing with people's lives is not a fucking game. Racism is not a fucking game. Gang stalking is not a fucking game. So have at it. But whatever it is that you're going to sacrifice in the name of trying to piss me off, you better hope it's worth it. And I'm going to leave it at that. Oh, what? I love you guys so much, my fellow TIs. Peace and blessings. And yeah, stay strong. Although I don't need to tell you guys that. You do that every day of your lives. I love you so much. Take care. Bye-bye.